What's up, Trader's Edge? It's Mark Sebastian, your only option, and this is the week that was. Today, we're going to talk about the trends I'm seeing in the S&P 500, the Qs, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average. We're going to talk about what happened with volatility, what happened with bonds, and we'll take a quick look back at NVDA and Apple because the price action was fascinating. So, with that, let's dig in. Folks, these two cards, they mean really bad news when you're playing poker, but they're great in blackjack if the dealer's throwing a 6. It's because then you can double down and potentially beat the dealer twice. It's my favorite type of move in blackjack, and that's something we're bringing to 0DTE. If you haven't checked out the video Hannah and I did on Thursday around 0DTE and how and why we're doubling down and how we use cash zones, make sure to check out the video. It's above me, below me, and in the description. If you're watching me on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, so the S&P 500 had yet another up week, if ever so barely. Closed the week up 0.2%. But still, all in all, pretty good week. Qs also had themselves a nice week, although, again, just pulling up 0.2%. It's been up 8 of the last 9 weeks. We've now gone over 330 days without a 2% down move. That clock is ticking. I want to point out something that's really interesting. This is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Unlike the Qs and the S&P, it's not sitting right at an all-time high, right? The diamonds are at 391. The all-time high is over 400. So they're about 3% off the all-time high, 2%, somewhere in that range. Meanwhile, SPX is, just a couple of points away from its all-time high. And this is a trend that's really gotten crazy over the last few weeks. I want to point out what's going on when comparing the returns of SPY to the Dow Jones. Look at this. This is so wide. We have such crazy outperformance out of the S&P relative to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Look where we were just about a month ago, right? The Dow was up about 18% and the S&P was up about 22. That's a little more normal than a 10% gap. So as I'm watching this is something I talked about across multiple services on Friday. As I'm watching it, I think there's going to be some convergence here. This is a trade that I put on in Delta Strike, and we're going to be putting on a very similar trade in Trading Desk on Monday because this gap has to close. How does it close? Either the Dow rallies or the S&P falls or a little bit of both. We got a little bit of both of that on Friday, the Dow inching up a little bit and the S&P down. Same thing on Thursday. Look, the S&P dropped pretty, a little bit on Thursday, but the Dow had a great day. You could see a couple more days of the Dow catching up. So I like long Dow, short SPY, or just simply long Dow if I want to express a long opinion in the market. Let's look at volatility. VIX closed 1320. It is up on the week despite the market ending the week up. Vol rallied. That's a little strange. When we see volatility and the underlying and the S&P 500 correlating, that's usually a bad idea. That's usually a bad thing. Futures term structure, July is very tight relative to the cash. So there's something potentially brewing. You hear me talk about the gamma bomb. That's up to about a 60 right now. So that, I think, is really interesting. Last but not least, let's look at bonds. They closed the day ever so slightly down, but they have kind of broken out, and I'm looking for them to maybe potentially make another leg higher. Now, let's take real briefly at what is causing the Qs to drop the last 2 days. And the answer is NVIDIA. NVIDIA reached over 140 on Thursday and closed at 130.78 with a low of 129. It actually had an over 11-point range. It was down more on Friday. It looks like it's heading down to like the 115, 116-ish. Maybe it comes to this 21-day moving average around 119.20, but there may be a little bit more pullback. I know XLK rebalanced. The big, huge run-up that you saw early in the week that kind of hit an exclamation point on Thursday, that was everybody except for XLK already rebalancing, getting out front. Apple, similar story. Had a kind of a blowout beginning of the week and has since pulled back pretty dramatically. It's closed this kind of secondary gap. I'm interested to see what happens with this candle, right? It's sitting right at the top of it. If it starts busting through, we could see 199 or 200 pretty quickly. I'm going to start to get interested in it if it breaks this 21, both as a potential short-term long play. All right. There you have it, folks. Again, don't forget to check out the video of me and Hannah. And if you're watching me on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment, ask a question. I will answer it. All right, folks. I am Mark Sebastian. I am your only option. Have a good one.